Welcome to the Alertus webinar series. My name is Vincent Busher, Marketing Coordinator at Alertus Technologies. During this presentation, Eric Murphy, Regional Account Manager, and Gary L. Gamil, Director of Software Engineering, will provide insight on the Alertus Desktop Notification 5.0 and what you can expect from the Winter 19 software release. Feel free to submit your questions during the webinar at any time, and they will be addressed during the Q&A session at the end of this presentation. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with you after today's session. If you have any questions after this presentation, please email marketing@alertus.com. Now I'd like to turn it over to Eric and Gary.
Thanks, Vinny. Like Vinny was saying, my name's Eric. Today we're going to be walking you through our new software update and more specifically kind of the desktop alerting piece of that. So just a quick little note about, Alertus software updates. We typically do them twice a year, once in the winter, once in the summer. The latest one was released last week on January 15th. While it's not necessary for all of our customers to upgrade to the newest version of this, we highly recommend it, and we always encourage customers to upgrade. All of the points of contact and technical points of contact at your organization should have received an email with download instructions and with the full feature list. If you haven't, please feel free to reach out to your account manager, and we will, get you that email as soon as we can. Customers with a valid support license with us are welcome to schedule some time with our support team to get assistance installing this update. Just reach out to support@alertus.com or your account manager to get that assistance. So one of the biggest things in this software release actually pertains to probably one of our most popular products, which is our desktop takeover. So on the surface level, it did get a facelift. As you can see, the old one on the left-hand side there, very boxy. With the new one, it's a little bit more sleek, a little bit more modernized. We updated the fonts, the icons, the buttons, the styling. More importantly, there's also some accessibility and some back-end improvements to this. So it's not just a facelift. There's also many other features, which I'm going to get into here a little bit later. But the first one is improved accessibility for screen reader software. So if your organization is using the screen reader technology, this will interface better with that than it has in previous versions. So just some notes on the full screen takeover changes for the look and feel of it. They will all take effect after you upgrade to the latest version of the Alertus software, so the Winter 2019 release. So this is going to affect all Mac and Windows clients versions 3 or higher of the Alertus desktop client. Now, most of this is coming from the server, so a client upgrade isn't necessarily required, but we highly recommend it just so you can take advantage of a lot of the new features that I'm going to discuss a little bit later on today. So like I mentioned, a lot of these changes are coming from the server itself, which is why you don't need to push out updates to the file, and a lot of the actual customization is coming from the server as well. So those of you who are familiar with the Alertus desktop takeover are probably familiar with Alertus desktop.exe configuration file and the logo1.gif file. Those are no longer. You can do all your customization and push them out right from the Alertus console. We're trying to save you guys a little bit of time and kind of streamline some things on your end. So it'll be a lot easier to actually upgrade and improve your Alertus desktop, after you have installed it. So just some kind of impacts as far as, this Alertus desktop client is concerned. If you are a grant customer and you have kind of that basic full screen functionality, you're going to need to update the desktop profile, which is called default in our system, with just your logo and any color changes that you want to do. That'll get you back to the same, look of the desktop takeover, obviously with the more modern feel. If you are an ENS customer, so that means you're using our Premier desktop activations, you're going to need to update your desktop profile to a full screen pop-up using what's called the classic template. So if you're familiar with the Alertus desktop Premier kind of section of the Alertus interface, you're going to notice that the image down at the bottom with the full screen takeover and the certain styling options, that no longer exists. You're going to strictly use the full screen pop-up for that. So as far as action that is required from you to, make sure this Alertus desktop is functioning and is functioning to the best of its ability, some steps, they're pretty easy steps, but, we do want to ensure that you guys take them. Once you're into your Alertus console, you're going to go to Configure System, click on Desktop Profiles, edit that desktop profile name default with ID 0. From there, you're going to expand the display mode variables section and just apply your custom branding, whether that is specific to your organization's logo or specific to maybe a color-coded alert system. You're going to apply that there and then just simply save it. It's a couple steps that is going to make your Alertus desktop more effective down the line than just the standard yellow and red alert there. So additionally, the HTML templates for things like our quarter screen alerts and our pop-up alerts also got a facelift. A lot of cosmetic things on this, but these are just a few of the updated ones that we have. So you can deliver messages anywhere from, pictures like you see in the tornado warning down there. Maybe you have, a suspicious person, you want to put that picture in the alert to send it out, or just your general information or your emergency alerting. These are, some options that will be available to you when you upgrade this server. We also came out with a few new desktop options that allow you a little bit more functionality and a little bit more of a kind of streamlined look for your emergency notification. So this one's called Resolute. It is set to be really any size on your desktop, and it's really used for your emergency situations, things like active shooters, bomb threats, intruder lockdowns. As you can see when it pops up, your branded emergency alert system, whatever name that you guys have for that system, is going to be put in the gray rectangle there. And from there, it'll say alert with the directions underneath, whether it's intruder lockdown, stay where you are, stay put, or evacuate this building. A lot of customers also requested recently from us to have a little bit more of an instructional template. Maybe something's happening that requires specific instructions, like, I have to evacuate North Campus and go to South Campus due to an event. This instructions template allows you to get that notification out. Like you saw, you're still going to get the alert text, so whatever you put into your preset alert to send out, but you're also going to get instructions in there as well. So if you have to, attempt to move staff around, move students around, this is a great way to do that, and it's actually all going to be pushed out to the computers that are, obviously connected to this system. So like I was saying before, not only did the Alertus desktop client get a facelift, we also have some new features about it. I'm actually really excited about this one. So right now, as it stands with the new winter release, we're actually able to broadcast alerts to computers when nobody is logged in. So before we were only able to do it from a logged in computer or if the computer was locked. Now it doesn't matter whether or not that person is there or not. As long as the computer is turned on, you will get that notification. This is going to be really big for things like computer labs. Maybe you have a very open area, a very open office area where there might not be a lot of people logged in. If I walk into that computer lab, I don't want to, have to log into my computer just to find out that there's an evacuation order that's been issued. So as soon as I walk in, I'm going to see all those computers broadcasting the same message simultaneously. And from there, I can respond to whatever that situation might be, whether it's stay put, there's an intruder lockdown, or, get out of the building, an evacuation order has been issued. So the way this works is it essentially runs as a service in the background that'll periodically check in to see if there is a user that is logged in or not. If there isn't, we're going to launch whatever desktop alert you're sending out onto the login screen there. Another big thing about this is that panic buttons, USB panic buttons, as well as the hotkey functionality for those panic buttons will also work when there are no users logged in. So if you do have any USB panic buttons or you're even utilizing the software panic button, we're not relying on someone being logged into that computer anymore. With that being said, this is going to be really helpful maybe for, educational facilities. If there's a teacher or professor giving a lecture or giving a test rather, and a student starts to become irate, they don't have to log into their computer to send that panic alarm to security or to police that they need assistance. They can just press that button and, have the confidence that it is going to go to the right people. Likewise, if there are employees responsible for opening, certain offices and somebody follows them into that office, they can quickly press that button to get the help that they need pretty quickly. So the application is going to look very, very similar to what you will actually get when you are logged in, if you're familiar with getting those alerts. An important caveat to this is that it will not, you are not able to target with LDAP if you are utilizing Active Directory. Obviously, if nobody's logged into the computer, we can't target that individual computer. Now, if you're using LDAP machine groups, that still is going to work, but if your organization is targeting individuals utilizing LDAP, that user will have to be logged in like before, for obvious reasons. So just kind of a quick little housekeeping note. In the device status report section, all logged in users will just show up as work name / machine name. So it'll be really easy for you guys to kind of manage that and just see your reach as far as this desktop notification is concerned. So just a quick little example of what this will actually look like when we send it out. We have two alerts here. We have the ticker mode, which you see in the right-hand side, and we have the pop-up example. Now, if we did the full screen pop-up example, it would just look like another full screen alert. So we chose a little bit smaller one just so you guys could see that that is indeed a lock screen. So one important thing about this is that your desktop profiles are going to remain the same regardless of when you send this out. So if you branded certain alerts to your organization, they're going to show up the same across all of those platforms. As well as the ticker mode, you're still going to be able to get that message out regardless of whether or not somebody's logged in. And an important caveat to this, all of this right now is just for Windows. So a lot of, besides the ticker mode, all of these changes will take effect for Windows machines. So as far as the Windows service that this actually utilizes, this is kind of a screenshot of, the installation and actually adding this service. Gary, if you want to kind of expand on this a little more, feel free.
Yeah, so essentially we have a new Alertus desktop service that is created as part of the installer, and that's what controls the logon screen behavior. So this is just a screenshot of what you'll see after upgrading. And I believe the next slide shows you if you were to disable this feature and you didn't want to have the actual logon screen alerts, you have some options here. If you want to continue that, Eric.
Yeah, so like Gary was saying, your organization might not necessarily want to display the lock-on screen. We do give you some options to disable that. There are pretty much 3 available to you, and it's really going to depend on how you're pushing this Alertus desktop client out to your organization. You can either do it from the actual machine. Let's say there are certain areas or certain machines on campus where you just don't want that full screen alert to go for whatever reason. You can do it from the actual installer. When you go to install that, just uncheck that box there. If you're doing this using an MSI, you can just find the install service line on that and set that to false. That way, when it installs on the computers, it's not going to install that service. You're going to get the same desktop alert functionality when someone's logged in or when they're actually utilizing the computer. This is also able to be done through the configuration file just by setting that value to false. So again, this isn't a required functionality to override the full screen or override the computer screen when no one's logged on, rather. You can turn it off if you have that desire.
Yeah, and just to add to that, lock screen alerts are actually enabled by default. So if you want to have this functionality, you don't have to take any action. These are just steps you can take if for your deployment or your case, you want to actually disable it.
Awesome. Yeah, so just a few kind of changes on the lock screen. A few of you might be familiar with kind of the text mode that would just pop up a text that said, your organization issued an emergency alert, log in to see more. That is no more. We have replaced that kind of generic image with image mode, which is going to allow you to use your desktop profiles to actually send this alert out and to keep that consistent branding and that consistent emergency alert across all computers at your organization. Now, like I was saying, alert mode will also enable you to have that consistency. So again, whether someone's logged in, logged out, or whether the computer is locked, you're going to get the same alert. So that way, you can ensure that your reach kind of expands by not having to leverage or not having to rely on all of those people actually being logged in to that computer. So if you look at the bottom image here, that's what you're going to see when you go into the Alertus console and when you go to set up your desktop alert profiles. pretty simple and pretty straightforward. You're either going to show the whole alert, show an image, which I'm going to get into next, or it's just going to not do anything if that user's logged in or if there's no lock on it. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, and just to add, so if you're a grant customer currently, you don't have Premier activation. So if you want to control the default lock screen mode, that's done in the config file for the Alertus desktop client. I'll leave us in the release notes what property you use for that. But you can specify there the default behavior, and then if you are a Premier client or Premier customer, ENS customer, you can specify it when you're actually sending the alert. So you could send some alerts in alert mode, other alerts in image mode, and control it at send time.
Cool. So like I said, there has been kind of a few changes to how the actual lock screen alert appears. So if any of you are familiar with lock screen alerts from previous releases, you're probably familiar with the image on the left-hand side. This was strictly just, please log in to view the alert at your organization. That kind of puts action into the recipient's hands. With the new version, we've kind of done away with that. And we've actually just broadcasted whatever emergency alert that you put on there or you send out to that actual computer. So again, really helpful for things like active shooters, things like bomb threats, where there's really no need for someone to log into a computer if they're just going to leave in a couple seconds. So with this, you're able to get that notification out, again, streamlined across all your platforms. So like I was saying, it is kind of the same thing there. Now, if you did want to kind of keep that sensitive information on the computer, let's say, it's a computer in one of your dispatch centers that someone might have pressed the panic button to, and you don't want that personal information. Let's say Susie activated a panic alarm from room 103, and it has all of her information in there. You're not going to be able to get that. Maybe you don't want to send out that information to the lock screen for obvious reasons, for privacy reasons. So what image mode actually allows you to do is broadcast an image that just tells the user to log in, so they can view that important or sensitive information. So again, that's really good for things like panic buttons going to dispatch centers, or maybe you're an administrator and you just send an alert out to the other administrators either at your organization or on your campus with instructions for something that's going to happen later in the day. Maybe you're at a college and you have to cancel classes after 3, but you don't want to make it public yet. This is a great use case for image mode. The lock screen alert, will be able to have that notification be streamlined, across all of the devices. Go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the major changes in this release as well is that in the past, for image mode, you had an actual file that you included with the installer. I think it was called screensaver.png. So that was the old way you would deploy your custom image, because most customers obviously want to brand their image that's displayed in image mode. So the biggest change we did in the winter 2019 release is that image is now managed from the Alertus server. So you can actually upload your images there centrally. You can update them at any time, and all the clients will automatically download them and use them. So just another feature that we added to kind of streamline updates to clients and make it easier for customers in the future when they need new content.
Yeah, and like Gary was saying, that's really gonna, I think, help kind of streamline the process of just updating these. If you get a new logo, or you want to change kind of the look and feel of that desktop, you don't have to push out a whole new image. You can just do so right there from the Alertus console, which is ultimately going to save you as our customer some time. So as far as configuration of this image mode, again, it is kind of a screensaver setting on there. So in the advanced settings of the Alertus middleware page, you are going to see this kind of screensaver setting pop up. There's a few different options there. Choose whatever one pertains to you, whatever one you kind of want to have happen, and from there you can get that functionality. So as far as the ticker mode, that's also been improved. One of the more important kind of features of this is we have added a scroll speed to it. So let's say you maybe have a lot of text in an alert and you want to scroll that slower so it's easier for people to read that text, or maybe you want to make it faster because it's a smaller alert and you don't want to have kind of that delay in between. You're able to do that now. An important note on this is, one, this is for both Windows and for Mac, but two, it's going to require both the server and the clients to be upgraded. So if you do want to control the speed of the ticker mode alert, you're going to be able to do so. You just have to upgrade your servers and the desktop alert client as well. So there also has been some communication changes as far as kind of how the desktop client communicates back with the server and vice versa. So I'm going to let Gary touch a little bit more on that.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So this is actually a really major change. You're probably not going to notice much when you upgrade your clients, but essentially under the hood, we really revamped a lot of the communication between the Alertus desktop client and the Alertus server. A lot of this has to do with the way the client registers with the Alertus server. In the past, we would basically, when the client registered, it would store an ID on the local file system. And this was used so that when the client restarted, it would have an ID already, and it would use that ID to check in. And that worked pretty well for most customers, but we had a lot of customers that were doing image deployments where they would take a computer and clone it, and that ID file unfortunately also got cloned, and you would result in having what we call an ID collision, which is essentially when numerous Alertus desktop clients are sharing the same ID. And that can cause some undesirable behavior and performance impacts as well. So the communication changes we made here were really to try to fix that, as well as sometimes some customers had warm spare deployments for backup that would also cause some ID collision. So that was our goal in trying to resolve that. So we revamped a lot of the underlying communication logic for the client. One other benefit of this is that in the standard default configuration, depending how you install it, in the past, if you installed an Alertus desktop client and you changed the computer name, you wouldn't always see that computer name displayed in the Alertus console when it changed. If you search for it, it would show the old computer name. So as a part of this change, now that computer name will be updated accordingly. It will re-register as a new server client, and the data will be more accurate, essentially. So this is essentially a new feature that affects all our clients when upgrading. It does require the new Alertus desktop client for Windows and the new Alertus server, but is backwards compatible with older clients to use the old method. So if you want to go back to the old method for some reason, which would probably be dictated through a conversation with Alertus support in most cases, there's a variable called use checking token that can revert the behavior back to the old 4.x or earlier client.
Awesome, thanks, Gary. And just some kind of housekeeping or labeling change notes. We have kind of changed the way some things are named in the actual Alertus console. So as you can see, the Alertus Desktop Premier activation is now Desktop Premier activation. Similar with the profiles, instead of Alertus Desktop Premier profiles, it's just desktop profiles. Again, they bring you to the same or similar web pages. It's just kind of easier to read and easier to kind of understand what that means. And then lock screen behavior. Now that we've added the Logon screen, we've just added that setting and kind of the behavior for you to toggle with that. So if you need any additional resources, feel free to check out some of these websites that are available to you. Most of them take you back to alertus.com. Also consult your account manager with any questions. I believe there were some questions as we were going along, so we can get those answered for you right now if you'd like.
Thank you, Eric and Gary. We are now beginning the Q&A session of our presentation. If you have a question, please submit them through the chat or question box. Please note, if we do not get to your question during this session, a representative will reach out to answer your question directly. A recording of this webinar will also be shared with you after today's presentation. Now let's begin with our first question. Will desktop alerts continue to work with third-party integrations after updating?
Yeah, yes, they will. So any integrations you currently have, if you're activating from a third-party system to Alertus, that should continue to work the same way with the Winter 2019 release. So if using Everbridge or Regroup or Rave or one of our many integration partners, those should all be unaffected.
All right, thanks, Gary. Do we need to remove the old version of the client before installing the new version service, or will it auto upgrade / remove the old version?
Yeah, that's another great question. So the Alertus desktop installer and actually the Alertus server installer are both very similar. If you just run the new installer, it will overwrite the existing client. So no removal is required for either when upgrading. And obviously, there's many different ways to deploy the Alertus desktop client, via manual install or via a third-party tool that might push out the client, but they're all the same. You can just install the new package, and once complete, you should see the new Alertus desktop service if you're doing the Logon screen alerts.
All right. Next question is, on the lock screen alert mode, will someone have to acknowledge the alert to make it clear, or can we clear alerts from the server?
So the acknowledge button does work. So that's a great question as well. When you get an alert on the lock screen, there is a button, as you saw. And as many of you know, our system does track acknowledgements. So if it's a lock screen alert that is sent to like an HTML or a ticker alert, and you close it or acknowledge it, that will actually send acknowledgement back to that user. However, there's a caveat to that. If you're sending an image mode alert, since the image mode just displays a static image, we didn't want to treat that as an acknowledgement, since the user might not have actually seen the message. They just saw, hey, log in to view the entire message. So that won't actually send an acknowledgement through the system there. I think there was a second part to that question. Could you read that?
So it says, on lock screen alert mode, will someone have to acknowledge the alert to make it clear, or can we clear alerts from the server?
Yeah, so I'm not sure about the clearing alerts from the server piece. If you do, I think that means cancellation. So if you're looking to cancel the alert, so alerts will display on the lock screen basically for as long as the alert duration lasts. So if you send a 30-minute alert out, it would display on the alert screen for 30 minutes or until someone acknowledges it. And then in addition to that, if you cancel it from the Alertus server, it will stop displaying as well. So I guess there's a couple of cases where you can stop displaying the alert.
Okay. After updating the server, will the old clients work until the new clients are updated?
Yes. So when it comes to updating, you have a lot of options here. I definitely recommend upgrading the Alertus server first because it's more centralized and a lot easier to do. But after that, you can update clients in any order you choose. Older clients will continue to work with the new Alertus server, and newer clients will obviously work as well. So yes, you have a lot of flexibility there. If you want to try out some of the lock screen features without updating your server, you can also do that as well. That's one of the features that, login and lock screen changes. So if you want to try those out, you could just install the new client against an older Alertus server release, and those would continue to work. And you could try out the features there.
Okay. When we upgrade the server, do all the old configurations or templates, will they remain the same?
For the most part, yes. So this is a piece that we kind of mentioned earlier. If you're doing full screen alerts, so when I say full screen alerts, I'm talking about the old legacy style that was done natively, kind of with a text box, not HTML based, the old full screen alerts. If you're doing those and you have existing templates for that, or profiles that use that, they're actually still going to work and use the old way if you activate with them, but we do recommend you go in and actually modify them. And the reason that is because if you go to change in the future, you won't see the changes you had. So it's for consistency and clarity and to avoid confusion for like when you send an alert and you say, hey, why does it look different than when I edit it? We recommend going in just to edit your profiles. In addition to that, we do, as we mentioned before, we have new HTML alert templates that we redesigned and add more accessibility features. If you want those changes as well, you do need to go and modify your Alertus desktop profile. So if you log into Alertus, go to Configure System, and go under Desktop Profiles, you can basically load the profiles and just hit the Save button, and that will apply the new HTML template. So I guess in short, if you're happy with what you have right now and it's working fine for you, you don't need to do anything. If you'd like to get the latest changes, we just recommend editing the desktop profile and hitting save to make sure you have the latest updates.
Okay. Next question is, will there be an update to the DSO client?
Definitely in the future. We're actually in the process of trying to decide how we want to handle some of the behavior of the DSO clients. We've had some customers request like HTML pop-ups and different types of behavior, which presents some unique challenges because the DSO client typically is displayed on digital signage. If you were sending an HTML pop-up, would we want that to display on a DSO client? Maybe, maybe not, and there's some interesting questions there. So if you have feedback on that, we actually would be really happy to hear from you. But currently the DSO client, we haven't made changes yet, but there are definitely some plans in the future. A lot of these new features we added, like lock screen alerts, don't really make sense for DSO, and same with Logon screen. So that's why we kind of waited on making those changes this time.
Okay. Next question. How does lock screen behavior work on a Mac while it's in sleep and lock mode?
Another great question. So with Lockscreen alerts, we actually released them about a year ago. I think it was the winter 2017 release, sorry, 2018 release. So with that, we were able to add Lockscreen alerts to the Mac. We recently discovered that with OS X Mojave that recently came out, it appears that some of the Lockscreen functionality no longer works. So we're currently looking to address that. It looks like Apple made some changes that made it much more difficult. So that's definitely something that we're trying to address going forward. Obviously, Logon screen alerts on the Mac are another issue as well. So those features are both, I would say, on OS X Mojave, they're currently not available. So we're looking to improve that in the future.
Okay. If we are only using a custom HTML template, do we need to take any actions for the release?
So similar to my answer before, no. If you're using a custom HTML template that was maybe you work with Alertus or you have your own template, in this case that will be unaffected. So no action is required.
Okay. Next question: is the upgrade going to impact using the alert beacons in any way?
No, it will not. It will not affect that at all. Alert beacons will continue to work as expected.
All right. Next question: do I need to upgrade my Alertus server and Alertus desktop client at the same time?
Yeah, I don't think. So as I said earlier, I think you could. You don't need to do it at the same time. We recommend doing the server first. That's usually ideal because it makes it a little easier to get all the new features. Because you can't use some of the new features without the Alertus server. But you're free to basically upgrade them at your leisure. We do recommend trying to get all your clients on a similar version if possible. I know that in some customers that's hard to push out clients all at the same time, but it generally is easier to troubleshoot, and generally you have better consistency across alerts if you're able to have a consistent client version or a close version at least across multiple machines.
Okay. Next question. So on a Mojave Mac, if the screen is locked, the user won't receive any alerts until they are logged in?
Yeah, that's been our experience. So with the Mojave Mac, they'll need to log in to see the alert. And I think when the other question was asked also, there were questions about how it works with a sleeping Mac. I believe if the Mac is sleeping, the client, in most cases, there are some exceptions because there are various states like hibernate, sleep, and also various low power states. But in most cases, the Alertus desktop client will attempt to wake the machine if they're logged in. But unfortunately, if they're locked out with a Mojave Mac, the alert will not be displayed.
All right, thanks, Gary. We have now concluded the Q&A session for our presentation. Again, if we did not get to your question, we will reach out to you directly with an answer. If you have any questions or need additional information, please feel free to email marketing@alertus.com, and we will be happy to assist you. If you're looking for more information on Alertus and our solutions, visit our website at www.alertus.com. If you are interested in upcoming webinars, please visit alertus.com/webinars to see the full schedule. Thank you for joining today's webinar, and we look forward to meeting you again soon.